Well, believe it or not, we are here for a garden tour. We're at the Science Museum by the Oklahoma City Zoo. Maybe the most energetic, energized place in Oklahoma City right now. There are kids absolutely everywhere. And one of the things that the kiddos can experience is the recently renovated Kyoto Japanese garden right here on the grounds in the context of a much larger garden that they also can explore. So come with us as we meet Barry Fox, who has really taken it under his wing and restored this beautiful, beautiful little gem of a treasure here in Oklahoma City. So I am here with Barry Fox, who is the overseer of this very special place. Tell us a little bit about its history, its evolution, and what has been done recently to restore it.
So in 1980, John E. Kirkpatrick went to Kyoto, Japan and fell in love with the style and held a competition at Kyoto, Japan to design a garden. It was designed and built there and brought to Oklahoma in the 80s. And then that was back in the Omniplex days. And then after some storms and financial hardships, the garden fell into disarray. We have since renovated the garden, which we did the last week of October when the Kyoto gardeners came from Japan and guided us to fix it.
That is incredible. So you said originally that there was a competition to design it, and they designed it completely in Kyoto, and then they kind of boxed it up and shipped it over here?
Yes.
You were telling me that as you were just kind of digging through some of just all of the overgrown shrubs and plants and things, that your first clue to what had been here was excavating this little pagoda, or what is this called?
So the lantern, at the time when I started in 2014, they were actually storing brush back here, and I peered over the wall and saw the top of the lantern, and that's when I realized what we had. And after a little bit of research, I really respected it because it was a big deal in the 80s, and actually is a big symbolism of Kyoto, Japan, which is our sister state.
Now, what I love about this is that the Science Museum is so interactive. It's so hands-on. The kids can really interface with everything. Like we were questioning, are the kids allowed to be on the gravel? Tell me how that works.
So our guests are welcome to come in and enjoy the garden. We ask that they stay on the paths. The designs are put in every morning, so we like to keep those as they are. But the guests are welcome to come in and explore the garden from the paths.
So the designs in the gravel changes on a
Yes.
daily basis based on your mood, based on the sun, based on what?
Well, yeah. Oh, fortunately, I was given creative control over the design. So the gravel actually represents the ocean, water. So last week when we were really windy, I added more waves to it. And this morning, since it was pretty calm, I kind of just did a little bit of waves around the rock, like what you would see at a lake. Everything is kind of intentional. Like these stones, they're placed at a distance where if a geisha was walking with a very tight dress, she would still be able to span the distance between the two stones.
And you've got this wonderful little bridge here, which of course children must adore. And at the end, you've got a Japanese maple. So talk a little bit about the plant material here. You said this was fescue.
So fescue, and then in the corners we have Nandina domestica, which is heavenly bamboo. The natural fence, the gate of the entry of the garden, is red tip photinia, and this is all material that the Japanese gardeners were used to using and was here originally, so we did our best to restore it to the way it was.
So and these are all plants very familiar to Oklahoma City gardeners, and it looks, I love the kind of grid work, the espalier there as you're coming in, and it's got, I think, so many features that are so crucial to contemplative design. You've got a water feature, you've got the beautiful architecture of the Japanese maples, and then you also have the quintessential bamboo,
Yes.
which you said is a battle you are ever fighting.
Yeah, it's definitely something to do every day. It comes up where it wants to, but yeah, it definitely takes some management. I wouldn't recommend planting it unless you had a concrete box.
Yes, yes. Or maybe a bunch of energetic kids who could help you corral it. So Barry, it's very charming looking, but I'm sure since everything is symbolic, I am sure there is a symbolism to this stone placed in the middle of the entrance.
Yeah, so if you visit a garden in Kyoto, Japan, and you see one of these stones at the entrance, it means that the garden's closed. That is what we call a barrier stone.
A barrier stone. I need one of those for my garden, I think. Looks like you've got a little crimson queen.
That's right.
Japanese maple over here.
Yep.
And it's perfectly positioned in that spot. So many elements to see in such a tiny garden. Yeah. And I love the green on this bamboo water spout or whatever. I just love that.
Yep, the swan neck fountain, and that bamboo came from Kyoto, Japan. When the master gardeners came to help restore the garden, they brought that with them.
Well, I'm sure he is. He's had practice. This isn't a competition, is it?
I was actually just...
You said something that I think is so instructive as you walk through this garden and experience it, and that is kind of the muse of intentionality, how Japanese gardens are all about very focused intentionality.
Kyoto Prefecture instructed on how that ladle was going to rest on the bamboo. That's a very important feature in Japanese gardens. It's where you would bring your guests and serve them tea. You would bring your guests and you would ladle out of there and make tea for them, and then they can sit and enjoy nature while you entertain.
So really beautiful, elegant simplicity, and the connection of nature with, just water that runs out of the trough and into the basin. But this is another example. As you have restored so much of the plant material here, this got a drastic pruning that normally in Oklahoma we discourage, the dehorning or topping off of trees. But explain this in the context of this garden.
So Japanese garden is about intention and control. So this will be very heavily monitored and adjusted, so we don't let it grow too gnarly and gather the weight that we can get with wind and ice storms. But it's about opening up that trunk so we can enjoy the garden and see the other elements.
Yeah, it's one of my very favorite things to do, which is expose the beautiful architecture of various kinds of shrubs. But the additional feature that I just love about this is look at the beautiful shadows that it and the bamboo make on the wall. So it's a multi-layered enjoyment of a garden that I love so much. So speaking about symbolism, I guess the pedestrian eye would look like there's just grass, beautifully placed grass, but there's just a trio of grass blobs. So, but you said there's great symbolism to this, so explain that.
Yes, so when the garden was designed, the intention was to represent the unity between the two sister cities, Oklahoma City and Kyoto, Japan. So this island that I'm on right now represents Oklahoma, and behind me you could see our state tree, the Oklahoma redbud, and then the other island represents Kyoto, Japan. And the bridge symbolizes the unity between the two.
And what a great instructive lesson for children, I think. The stones that are here, are these indigenous to Oklahoma? They look, I guess not if they came from Kyoto, they look almost petrified.
Yeah, so these are jade stones, and they did come from Kyoto, Japan. So they did build, this garden looked this way in Japan, and they did package it all up and bring it here.
It's really, really amazing. And we are under the canopy of what kind of tree here?
This is a golden rain tree, and I will confess that I would not have planted it myself. It does put out a lot of litter, and then also the box elder bugs really like it. They like that and the silver maple tree. So, but it's very beautiful when it blooms. It'll bloom yellow, and it'll rain those yellow flowers down.
Yeah, well, for periods of time. It's just, again, another thing that you have to control. So lots of maintenance. Lots of maintenance to what is a very, very, really simple garden, but nevertheless requires intentional maintenance. Well, this is just so lovely. I encourage everyone to come out here, especially it's very calm and quiet. So if you are feeling stressed or you need a moment of meditation and contemplation, then I definitely would encourage you to come out to the Kyoto Japanese Garden here in Oklahoma City at the Science Museum. And while you're here, please make sure to explore the rest of the garden that's also here.
Yes, there's quite a bit more, from native Oklahoma garden to hydraulically driven excavators.
One of my favorite quotations I have ever heard, and that is, the intent of these gardens is to do what in children?
We'd like to fan the horticultural spark within our guest.
Hey, I'm not very good at this, Stuart. This takes a little skill. Huh? Well, I'm sure he is. He's had practice. This isn't a competition, is it?
I was actually just thinking it's been a very long time since I actually played around on one of these.
You're just wanting to humiliate me.
I'm trying. That was the whole point.
There. I'm counting that as a win. I'm counting that as a win. That's good. I shan't be humiliated anymore.
This is Chinese wisteria, and it is aggressive. But
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, my friend.
He'll come right up to you.
Yeah. I mean, Stuart, look at this. This is amazing. This is what I'm talking about, how just overly aggressive it can get. You're the expert. It's Chinese that's the one that is so
aggressive,
and American wisteria is the one that's a little tamer, am I right?
It is, and really they're almost identical, except the American will sporadically bloom in the summertime, where this one will get one flush around spring break and then it's done.
Well, I'm just always so concerned about things also being mismarked that I would be hesitant to plant wisteria in Oklahoma of any kind, as beautiful as I think it is, but look at the canopy that it makes, and how interesting it looks, and the textural qualities and the mosaic from those who are resting underneath its canopy. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I spy a gnome. Let's look over here, because what is a garden without a gnome?
Yeah.
So what is this? Is this crossvine?
It is. Yeah, crossvines is one of our good native vines. Definitely more controlled than trumpet creeper.
Or wisteria.
Or wisteria, that's right. And it has really nice red, yellow bells on it that the bumblebees and hummingbirds enjoy.
Now, I'm just really recently becoming more familiar with crossvine in a residential garden. I would think be very, very valuable, but I didn't know it was a native. Thyme is one of my very favorite herbs.
Yeah, that's a wintergreen thyme. This is just the typical species. We also have the silver wintergreen thyme. It gives us good color at this time of year. Also very fragrant, and if you enjoy spaghetti or pizza, it's an herb you need to grow.
Well, and then you need some oregano.
And some oregano, yeah.
Yes, very much so. And you've got some mint back here, and lavender.
Lavender, rosemary.
Yeah, and some artemisia. Now, you were telling me a sweet little story about thyme, though.
Yeah, so I grew up in Shenandoah Valley in Northern Virginia, and I visited a arboretum out there, and I saw a herb garden. And from across the way, I noticed what looked like moss, and then on closer inspection, I realized it was elephantine. And that's sort of when the light bulb went on for me, that you could really look at plants and enjoy plants. And from there, it really inspired a passion for them.
Herbs are one of my very favorite things to grow because they just are valuable on so many levels. Well, you said you're passionate about natives, and increasingly we need to rely on them in our Oklahoma gardens. So you have this whole area, and I just love the simple blockade that you've got here, just rope through some rebar. But tell me about, excuse me, some of the natives that you have here. I see some Rudbeckia maxima here, and what else do you have?
Oh, we have a little blue stem, our lead plant, which is in the pea family. So it's important in the prairies because, as we know, peas fix nitrogen from the air. It works with bacteria in the soil. Then also on the ground cover, we have frog fruit, which I really like because I found this guy out in the lawn by Remington and Martin Luther King. And he just kind of caught my eye, and I took a little cutting of him and identified him as frog fruit, and then started propagating him. And now he's kind of keeping our native bed good and crowded, which is what you want from your
It is
garden.
a great ground cover. And just this year, Stuart, do you remember learning about frog fruit? I think it was the garden in Linwood that had it. I first of all, I love the name, as kids will too. And I think it just, but I didn't realize it could be such a wonderful evergreen ground cover. It's really beautiful. And what do we have here? Is that some kind of phlox or?
Penstemon.
Oh, it's a penstemon.
So this is one of those, what we affectionately call nativars, so a native plant that's been cultivated a little bit. I got that from Bustani Plant Farm, and it's a...
We love Bustani. Steve's a real treasure in Oklahoma, is he not? Oh my gosh, look at this. How fun. Now, and I recognize this from hiking. So what is this that make these little bloom seed heads that look like pine cones almost?
Yeah, so this is a popular plant. This is the Illinois bundle flower. It's another Fabaceae pea family. So if you look at these guys, they're individual pea pods, so which is very common for the pea family. Same with the bipinnate foliage.
Stuart, can you capture here? It almost looks like metallic gold on the underside. How beautifully that would capture the light.
Yeah.
Okay, this is one of my favorite things I've seen here. I just love the seed heads.
Yeah, another good thing about this plant, it has these hollow stems.
Yes.
So that's a great place for a solitary bee or another insect to lay eggs in or overwinter in. So great native plant, helps our insects. And it's another reason why you shouldn't cut your garden back down until we're about 50 degrees in the spring. You can see the leaves accumulating there. That's good natural
mulch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I blow all my leaves into the flower beds. Well, and obviously it wouldn't be a children's educational device if you didn't talk about our friends, the flying wildlife in the garden, the pollinators, the bees, the monarchs, just around to capture the wind. And then you have the beautiful sounds of the wind chimes. Very experiential, which every good garden should be, I think.
So underneath these caddo maples, that leads the way to our sensory garden.
One of my favorite, I have one in my front yard. It's like, even on a cloudy day, it makes sunshine.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of marveling how this one's so yellow and that one's red.
Do you think it depends on the weather? How they color, or just the genetics of the tree itself?
I think it's about how they made different types of sugar, how well it grew. Because the colors are the chemicals left over.
Yeah.
So that one got something a little different.
And then look at this charming sunken spot here. Under what kind of tree is this?
This is a lacebark elm.
Lacebark elm, yes. And speaking of, it gets its name from the lacy bark, which is just spectacular. One of my favorite trees. And I think it's still a recommended tree for Oklahoma, is it?
Oklahoma It's on the Oklahoma Proven list.
Is this a Wagila?
Yes. Yeah.
A very underused ornamental, I think.
It's one of those forgotten plants, like astilbe and foxglove, that you just don't see much anymore.
Very old-fashioned, but I've got one that blooms so beautifully in my yard, and I just really love it. And they look beautiful pruned up too, and just kind of into small trees. Lots of cacti and succulents in here. And then you've got a little vegetable garden over here and an orchard, because what would a garden be without edibles, right?
Yeah, so we got our cool season crops going right now. We have our frost blankets over to protect them from last night, the cold snap.
But the children, they're allowed to come back here and explore and experience what you've got here.
Yeah.
And a little orchard here, which you said, I found it so funny. You said that your apple trees do produce, but
yes, the kids and the squirrels usually beat us to them.
you've never tasted none of your harvest.
Yeah, no.
Well, this is just a fun place to end up. I can't thank you enough for spending the time, and what a service you provide to Oklahoma City here. These wonderful things. We've been to the Myriad Botanical Gardens, and then who knew that the Science Museum had gardens equally as wonderful. So thank you so much, Barry. We really appreciate it. Now I'm going to go in and get some hot coffee because it's cold and I'm having trouble moving my mouth. So thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed this, and we will continue to try to explore other gardens in the Oklahoma City area.